Thank you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know as we're talking college football on this channel year-round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button. Welcome in, everybody. Another edition, a preseason 2024 edition. College football betting. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope everybody is ready for another one of our preseason over-under win total pots. So I told you before, in the past, we went division by division, conference by conference, SEC East, SEC West, etc. Well, guess what? Now these conferences are huge, 16, 18 teams. And so what we've decided to do is just go team by team. Just seems a more efficient route. Do a couple of these every week, get them out to you. You can download them 2, 3, 4 at a time and get a ton of good information. We've done Bama, we've done Georgia, we've done Texas, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss to this point. Today, it's the Florida Gators. Florida, of course, coming off back-to-back, 3 straight losing seasons, 2 straight losing seasons under current head coach Billy Napier. We know the schedule is brutal. We know everything that is at stake for the 2024 Florida Gators. You want to know how far Florida has fallen? How about this? The over-under win total at FanDuel Sportsbook right now is 4.5 wins entering the 2024 season. So I want to go in. If there's a little bit of a positive spin, it's that the money is coming in on the over, but it speaks to how far this program has fallen, how much work they have to do, and bluntly, how tough this schedule is. So let's go ahead and look at the 2024 Florida Gators. First off, we got to go back to last year. And Florida fans, listen, I'm not going to try to be too negative here, but we do got to talk a little bit about what happened because it sets the tone for what expectations are this year. The wild part about Florida last year, it's easy to forget. They are coming off 3 straight losing seasons and, of course, back-to-back losing seasons under Billy Napier. But the crazy part is, things actually started out kind of okay for Florida a year ago. If you remember, yes, they lose to Utah on opening night. You don't want that, but Utah was the 2-time defending Pac-12 champions. But at the same time, after that, people forget. After you lose to Utah, you win 3 straight games from there. That includes a home win over Tennessee. You think you finally got some momentum. Then you go to Kentucky. Then you get smacked at Kentucky. Ray Davis, 280 yards of total offense. Another bad loss. But again, you win 2 straight after that to improve to 5-2. You beat Vandy. You rally to beat South Carolina. All of a sudden, you're sitting at 5-2, and you sit there and say, okay, we just got to get one more win in the back half of the schedule. We get bowl eligible. We build some momentum. We get to a bowl game. We get all these extra practices, and we'll be just fine. Well, just one problem. Coming out of the bye, they don't win a single game the rest of the year. They obviously lose to Georgia in the cocktail party. We know Georgia, you can argue, was still the best team in college football last year. Michigan wins the national championship. Georgia would have been favored over every single team in that playoff, including a rematch with Bama, including a game against Michigan. No shame in that. But from there, then the big one. You host Arkansas. Arkansas is winless in SEC play. They just lost 6-3 to Mississippi State 2 weeks before. They go into their bye. They fire offensive coordinator Dan Enos. They come to the Swamp and get the win. And then from there, the wheels fall off. Close loss to Missouri. You get smoked by LSU in a game that basically sealed Jaden Daniels' Heisman Trophy. 606 yards of total offense for Jaden Daniels alone. And you lose to Florida State. By that point, Graham Mertz is out, but Florida State, of course, is down to their 3rd-string quarterback. You finish 5-7, disappointing year. And really, a negative tone going into the offseason where you struggle to hold together that recruiting class. Again, not trying to be negative. This is just the facts. The good news, of course, is that you do keep probably your 2 most important recruits, DJ Lagway, the quarterback, and, of course, LJ McCray, the number 1 defensive lineman in America. So that sets the tone. That's what happened last year. Let's look ahead to this year. And there are some positives when you look at this team. First off, let me say this. Since a Florida fan listening or watching is going to say, this guy Torres is pretty negative about my team. No, 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 no. And let me give credit where it's due. A year ago at this time, Billy Napier was hyping up Graham Mertz. We haven't seen the real Graham Mertz. I talked to Paul Chryst, the former Wisconsin coach. His best football's ahead of him, all that. I thought it was nonsense. Graham Mertz actually played pretty well last year. It's easy to forget because of the win-loss record, but Graham Mertz a season ago, 73% completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2,900 yards passing. He gets hurt late, but he was actually a bright spot for them. He comes back for his final year at college football, and there will be talent around him. Montreal Johnson, people talk about Trevor Etienne transferring to Georgia. I'm not saying that's the greatest thing that ever happened to the Florida football program, but Montreal Johnson was the leading rusher a season ago, 817 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. The wide receiver room does lose Ricky Pearsall. The counter to that is that they really did very well in the portal. Elijah Badger comes in from Arizona State, 65 catches a year ago, 713 yards, 3 touchdowns. By the way, had 70 catches in 2022. On top of that, Chimere Dike transfers from Wisconsin after 19 catches. And of course, Eugene Wilson comes back after 61 catches a season ago. If you want to look at maybe my biggest concern about the Florida offense, it's not Graham Mertz. It's not the skill positions. It's actually, in my opinion, that offensive line. If you're looking for a positive, you get back 3 starters. If you're looking for a negative, those 3 starters need to improve greatly. Last year, Florida allowed 39 sacks in 12 games. 115th nationally. That is not acceptable. That's not going to get the job done. Florida overall was 77th in rushing offense. Listen, whether it's Montreal Johnson, whether it's Emmitt Smith, it doesn't matter. You're only as good as the guys blocking for you. These guys weren't good enough. You hope that they're better. Speaking of you hope it's better, the defense. The defense just simply was not good enough last year. 75th nationally in points per game allowed. But I think the thing that stands out is what I said a minute ago. It's not just that you lost games. It's that you were inconsistent and you got bullied in some of those games. Again, at Kentucky, that game wasn't even competitive. 33-14 was the final score. But as I said, in that game, Kentucky finishes with, how about this? 329 yards rushing. Ray Davis with 280 yards rushing. That's never acceptable for a Florida team in any SEC game. I don't care if you're playing Nick Saban's Alabama, Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs, or the Kentucky Wildcats. That's not acceptable. LSU, you give up 700 yards of offense. Not acceptable. And so it's got to be better. It starts up front, positives and negatives. You do get a couple nice pieces back. Tyreek Sapp coming back after 4.5 TFLs, 2 sacks a season ago. Caleb Banks was a high-profile transfer from Louisville who comes in and was pretty good a season ago. And then also, you do bring in some big-timers, both out of the portal and the high school ranks. We mentioned that L.J. McCray was the #1 high school player in America a year ago on the defensive line. He was committed to Florida. There was talk he was going to flip going into signing day. He ends up in Gainesville. Couple nice pieces as well, including Joey Slackman, an FCS All-American at Penn. Linebackers, Shamar Jones is obviously the guy, right? Multi-year starter, multi-year player, came in that first Billy Napier class, has stuck the course, 54 tackles, 5.5 TFLs last year. And Pup Howard from South Carolina, transfer, really emerged nicely during the spring, 19 tackles, 1 TFL last season. Secondary, kind of an interesting hodgepodge, right? You have Jason Castell back, was your leading tackler last year. You also bring back in a player that I like, Asa Turner, who is a transfer from Washington, was really good 2 seasons ago, struggled with injuries a little bit a year ago, but he is in. And then kind of the X factor, right, is Cormani McClain. The early reports are not good. If you can ever get him to buy in and mature, though, that's an All-American type talent. Again, if you can get him to mature. And so I bring it up because the talent isn't terrible. But let's get into the $1 million question, the $1 million commentary, and that is that schedule. The schedule is as thankless as any in college football, okay? If you're looking for a silver lining, Positive is 3 of the first 4 are at home. The negative, 3 of the first 4 of those 4, or I guess 4 of the first 5, are at home. The negative are some of those are losable. You open with Miami. You're a home underdog against Miami. That line is already out. You get Sanford in week 2. You welcome in Mike Elko and Texas A&M in week 3. Then you got to go to Mississippi State in week 4, and then Central Florida UCF in week 5. So of those first 5 games, 4 are at home. But Miami, you're an underdog. Texas A&M, we'll see, and Central Florida obviously is a Power 5, Power Now 4 program. Then you go to Tennessee and you get Kentucky going into your bye. Why that's concerning? One, you lost to Tennessee 2 years ago. Tennessee is a better team on paper, but even Kentucky, I wonder how many people know this. You know that of the last 6 times that Kentucky has played Florida, Kentucky's won 4 of the last 6. They've won the last 2 in the Swamp, and they're 2-0 against Billy Napier. So, like, the games on the schedule that are supposed to be layups and maybe historically have been for Florida, there's no guarantee in 2024, You keep going down the schedule. This is the crazy part. So we just mentioned Miami at home, A&M at home, at Tennessee, Kentucky at home. That's the easy part of the schedule. By the way, your first SEC road game is at Mississippi State. That's not a gimme, even though that is a rebuilding program. But then the final 5. I mean, it's as tough. Forget as tough as any 5-game stretch in college football this season. It's as tough of a 5-game stretch as anything that I have ever seen covering college football. Final 5. Georgia, cocktail party. We know that, Jacksonville. Then at Texas, okay, good luck with a preseason top 5 team. Then LSU at home, your rival. Then Ole Miss at home. Remember, Ole Miss this year is going to be a preseason top 10 team, picked to finish 4th in the SEC. And then at Florida State to close the season. So the AP poll has not come out yet. But I think we are talking about realistically 5 straight preseason top 15 teams to end the year. You know Georgia's going to be there. Then you go to Texas. Then you get LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, at Florida State. That is as absurd of a schedule as you can possibly imagine. And that's, again, getting Miami and Texas A&M on the front end, at home, Tennessee on the road. So when you look at this over-under, let me say this, a couple things. One, I'll say this. Listen, I think that the college football world, it can be a tough place. It can be a little bit negative. And I certainly think there's the scenario where this whole thing crashes and burns. You lose every coin toss game that you're not supposed to, and it's a disaster, and Billy Napier is out, okay? That is certainly in play. At the same time, I will say this, is that I think we spend too much time thinking about a worst-case scenario. Well, what if they lose all these games? But if you look at the schedule, what if the opposite happens? You're a slight home underdog to Miami, but you are at home. What if you win that one? Texas A&M, I believe in Mike Elko, but that is his first big game on the road as an SEC head coach. There's no guarantee that A&M is going to win that game, even if they win their opener against Notre Dame. Kentucky, what if this is finally the year you get right against Kentucky at home? So there's a difference between not having winnable games on the schedule and being able to actually win them. And that's the $64,000 question for Billy Napier. And so for me, this is, as crazy as it sounds, it's a stay away to me at 4.5, because I can make the case that you win a bunch of these coin flip games and you're 7-5 and you're really building momentum going into the DJ Lagway era next year. But again, you are a home underdog against Miami. You have not beaten Kentucky in the last 2 times that they've come to the Swamp. Mississippi State is not an easy place to play. Tennessee, you lost to the last time you went to Rocky Top. Oh, by the way, LSU, Ole Miss, yeah, they're at home, but Billy Napier might be gone by then for all we know. So to me, as crazy as it sounds, if I had to lean over under 4.5, yeah, I'm going to take the over. But as crazy as it sounds, I don't think that it's guaranteed. I just don't. It's a stay away. I would lean over. I think Billy Napier wins some of those coin toss games this year with the experienced quarterback, but I can't bet my hard-earned money on it. A stay away to me, which speaks to where Florida is as a program. And obviously, let me say this. It goes without saying. I mean, you don't go over 4.5 billion. Napier is not making year 4. So we'll see. I'm not trying to be negative. That's just the reality. Florida is in a very precarious place.